I still feel shrouded in a haze of sadness when Ashley calls me out. I don't have the slightest desire to go, but she insists that a coffee can do me good. "Megan, you need to leave the house from time to time. Come on, just a coffee," she says with that look of friendship that I can't refuse. Reluctantly, I accept. We arrived at the cafe, a cozy place with soft light and the smell of freshly ground beans. We chose a table near the window, where sunlight filtered through the leaves of the trees, creating dancing patterns on the table. The aroma of coffee mixed with the soothing sound of ambient music was almost comforting. Ashley starts talking about her new project at work. I try to pay attention, but my mind wanders. It's hard not to think about Ethan. It's been 3 years since he left, but the pain is still as acute as the day I got the news. As Ashley talks, my eyes wander through the cafe, and suddenly I see a man sitting alone, smiling while reading a book. Something in his smile is painfully familiar. My heart leaps, as if recognizing a long-forgotten memory. I try to look away, but it's impossible. There's something about him that pulls at me, reminding me of Ethan in a way I can't even explain. "Megan, are you okay?" Ashley asks, noticing my distraction. "Yes, I'm sorry," I reply, trying to seem more interested in the conversation. "It's that man over there. He looks familiar." Ashley looks discreetly in the direction I indicated. "He's handsome. You should go talk to him." "No way," I say, shaking my head. The last thing I want is to get involved with someone, especially someone who reminds me of Ethan. But it seems that fate has other plans. The man notices my gaze and smiles back. Before I can look away, he gets up and comes towards us. "Hello, can I join you?" he asks with a warm smile that makes my heart beat faster. Ashley, always sociable, responds before I can protest. "Sure, sit down." He introduces himself as Lucas. The conversation begins casually, but soon deepens. I discover that we share common interests, such as literature and photography. It's strange to feel such an immediate connection with a stranger, but there's something about Lucas that makes me feel comfortable, almost safe. "Do you like parks?" Lucas asks suddenly. "There is a park nearby that is beautiful at this time of year. Would you like to take a walk?" I look at Ashley, who encourages me with a nod. "I think it would be good for you, Megan." Reluctantly, I accept the invitation. We walked through the park, where the sound of leaves under our feet and the gentle breeze created a sense of peace that I had not felt for a long time. We talked about everything and nothing at the same time. Lucas tells me about a painful experience that still haunts him, a loss he has yet to overcome. This creates a strange bridge between us, a mutual understanding of pain. "I lost my fiancée in a car accident," he says, his voice heavy with sadness. "I still think about her every day. I feel a twinge in my heart. I lost someone too. Ethan. He was..." My voice fails, and Lucas puts a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Megan, I know how hard it is." The sun begins to set, and I realize I've spent the entire afternoon with Lucas. When we finally say goodbye, he gives me a smile that, once again, painfully reminds me of Ethan. "Can we see each other again?" he asks, and for the first time in years, I feel a spark of something I thought I'd lost forever. "Yes, I would like that," I answer, surprising myself. As I walk back home, I can't stop thinking about Lucas and the strange comfort I felt next to him. Maybe, just maybe, there is a chance that my life can change for the better. The days following our meeting in the park were a mix of old and new emotions. Lucas and I began to see each other frequently, and surprisingly, the connection between us deepened with each encounter. I felt intrigued and at the same time frightened by how easily he seemed to understand my pains and joys. On a sunny afternoon, we decided to take a walk through the park again. The gentle breeze swayed the leaves of the trees, and the sound of birds created an almost magical atmosphere. Lucas walked beside me, his serene gaze fixed on the path ahead. Suddenly he stopped and turned to me. "Megan, there's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice charged with a seriousness I hadn't noticed before. I stood beside her, feeling my heart race. "What is it, Lucas?" He took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to continue. "I lost my fiancée in a car accident a few years ago. It was an extremely difficult time for me." The pain in his eyes was palpable, and I felt a surge of empathy wash over me. "I'm sorry, Lucas. It must have been awful." He nodded, looking down at the floor. "It was. It took me a long time to get over it, if I really got over it. But to be with you, It makes me feel like I can move on. Those words touched something deep within me. For the first time in years, I felt the need to share my own pain. I also lost someone, Ethan, my partner. He died tragically, and since then, I have closed myself to love. Lucas looked at me, his eyes full of understanding. It's hard, isn't it? Feeling that you will never find the same happiness again? I nodded, feeling the tears pool in my eyes. Yes, it is, but somehow being with you reminds me that I can still feel something good. He held my hand, and that simple gesture was indescribable comfort. We continue our walk, talking more about our losses and our hopes. A few days later, Lucas suggested we visit an art gallery. I couldn't help the tightness in my chest as I remembered that it was one of Ethan's and mine favorite places. However, I agreed, feeling that it was time to face these memories. As we arrived at the gallery, I was overcome by a mixture of nostalgia and sadness. The artwork, vibrant colors and familiar textures brought back moments of happiness I thought I would never experience again. Lucas, noticing my expression, asked softly, "You've been here before, haven't you?" I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, Ethan and I used to come here often. As we walked through the galleries, Lucas stopped in front of a specific painting. "I know this artist. My fiancé loved her job," he said, his eyes sparkling with a distant memory. I was surprised by the coincidence. Ethan, too. He always said there was something special about this work. Lucas smiled, but there was something in his eyes that I couldn't decipher. It looks like they had good taste. That night, lying in my bed, I began to think about the coincidences between Lucas and Ethan. The smile, the taste for art, even some of the expressions Lucas wore reminded me of Ethan. But I decided not to delve into these thoughts, fearing that it might just be my mind playing tricks on me. Over the weeks, our relationship continued to develop. There was a simplicity and sincerity in our encounters that comforted me. I found myself laughing more, feeling life in a way I hadn't felt in years. One evening, while we were having dinner in a cozy restaurant, Lucas held my hand on the table. "Megan, I know we're just getting started, but I want you to know that being with you has been the most wonderful thing that has happened to me in a long time." I smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude and affection. "I feel the same way, Lucas. Thank you for showing me that happiness is still possible." And so, between heartfelt conversations, laughter, and shared memories, I began to realize that maybe, just maybe, love could find a way back to my heart. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon when I decided to finally tackle the pile of old boxes in the attic. Among yellowed photos and dusty memories, I found a love letter from Ethan, one I had never seen before. His words were sweet and familiar, but one sentence stood out. "There is a secret that I never told you, something that I wanted to share, but time has never been our ally." My heart tightened. What could be so important that he couldn't tell me? Later that day, Lucas invited me to dinner at his house. I accepted, eager to distract myself from disturbing thoughts about Ethan's letter. When I arrived, I was greeted by the delicious aroma of homemade food and Lucas's welcoming smile. He guided me to the dining room, where a beautifully set table awaited us. After dinner, he suggested we go to the living room. There, while we were drinking wine, I noticed a picture on a shelf. It was Lucas with a man who looked incredibly like Ethan. My heart started beating faster, and I couldn't help but ask, "Lucas, who is this in the photo with you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Lucas looked at the photo and sighed deeply before answering. "That's my twin brother, Nathan. He disappeared years ago," he said with a palpable sadness in his voice. I felt a chill run down my spine. Nathan? Ethan? The coincidences were piling up in a way I couldn't ignore. "Lucas, did you say Nathan?" My voice came out louder than I intended. "Yeah, he was very important to me. Before disappearing, he left me a letter." Lucas got up and went to a drawer, from where he took out an envelope yellowed by time. He handed me the letter, and my hands trembled as I opened it. Nathan's words echoed Ethan's, mentioning a woman he loved deeply but had to leave to protect. "Megan, Nathan is Ethan," I whispered, finally understanding the truth. "Ethan never mentioned having a brother. That makes perfect sense now." Lucas looked at me, perplexed and confused. "What do you mean, Megan? What do you want to say?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Ethan. He was her brother, Nathan. He never told me about you. He said he had a secret he couldn't share. Now I understand that he was trying to protect me. Tears began to flow down my face as the truth unfolded before me. Lucas was silent for a moment, processing the information. Then he came over and hugged me. Megan, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I never imagined Nathan and Ethan would be the same person, he said, his voice filled with pain and regret. We stood there, hugging, trying to understand the magnitude of the revelation. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, but there were still so many unanswered questions. Ethan, or rather Nathan, had lived a double life, and now I was beginning to see the full picture. As I walked home that night, my heart was heavy, but also relieved. Finally, some of the questions that had haunted me for years were being answered. However, new issues arose, and I knew I would need time to process everything. The next morning, I decided I needed more answers. I went to Lucas' house and asked to see anything else he had on Nathan. He hesitated for a moment, but then agreed. Together, we began to leaf through old photos, letters, and documents. That's when I found a special letter written by Nathan shortly before he disappeared. In it, he mentioned a key to a safe where he kept all his secrets. Immediately, I remembered the key I found in Ethan's house. Lucas, I think I know where the safe is, I said, my voice full of determination. He looked at me with surprise and hope. Let's find him together, Megan. We need to know the truth, he replied, holding my hand firmly. And so, together, we embarked on a new journey to uncover all the secrets Ethan, or rather Nathan, had left behind. The revelation hit me like a punch in the stomach. Nathan was Ethan. Ethan was Nathan. The same person, but with different lives. I needed time to process all this. Without saying a word, I walked away from Lucas, leaving him at the door of his house, with a look of concern and sadness. My thoughts were clouded, and my heart, a mess. Back in my apartment, the first thing I did was throw myself on the couch and cover my face with my hands. The tears came without warning, warm and incessant. How could Ethan hide something so big from me? And Lucas, why did he never mention anything before? The questions swirled in my mind, one after the other, without stopping. After a few hours of self-pity, I decided I needed answers. Ethan has always been secretive about his past, but there was an old house he mentioned once, a childhood home. I grabbed my car keys and drove there, determined to find something that would clear up all this mess. The house was abandoned, but still it seemed to hold memories within its weathered walls. I opened the door with difficulty and entered, feeling a shiver run down my spine. In the back of the room, an old bookcase caught my eye. I rummaged through the books and dusty papers until I found a hardcover notebook. Flipping through it, I realized it was a diary full of Ethan's notes and thoughts. One specific entry caught my eye. I can never tell Megan the truth. The life we built together is a refuge, but my past haunts me. Nathan, my brother, is gone, but his shadow remains. My heart sank as I read those words. Ethan was fighting demons I could never imagine. I closed the diary and walked away, trying to process the flood of emotions. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I turned quickly, only to find Lucas standing at the door. Megan, I need to talk to you, he said, his voice full of urgency. Lucas, not now, I replied, trying to stay calm. I need time to understand all this. Please just listen to me, he begged, stepping forward. I know you're hurt, but so am I. Ethan, Nathan, he was my brother, and I never knew what really happened to him. I sighed, feeling exhaustion overwhelm me. Lucas, I feel betrayed. For Ethan, for you. How can I trust someone again? I don't have all the answers, Megan, Lucas admitted, his voice shaking. But I know he loved you, and me. I'm starting to love you too. Luke's words hit me hard. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to find a way to the truth. But the pain was deep, and the distrust even greater. I decided to walk away again, this time more resolutely. I need time, Lucas. Please give me space. He nodded, sadness in his eyes. I understand, but please don't give up on us. I left the house, leaving Lucas behind, and went back to my car. I drove aimlessly for a while until I finally stopped in front of Ashley's house. She was always my rock, and I needed her advice now more than ever. Ashley opened the door with a welcoming smile, which soon fell apart at the sight of my condition. Megan, what happened? I collapsed into his arms, telling everything between sobs. She listened to me patiently, without interrupting, until I finally finished. "Megan," she said softly, "you need to face this head on. Running away won't solve anything. Find the truth, no matter how painful it is." Ashley's words echoed in my mind as I walked home. She was right. I needed to find out the truth, no matter how painful it was. Back at my apartment, I started looking for more clues. That's when I found a key hidden in Ethan's drawer. She had a tag with a safe number on it. With a racing heart, I went to the bank where Ethan kept an account. I used the key to open the safe and found a small metal box. Inside it was an envelope with important documents. My heart beat unsteadily as I opened the envelope, sat, going that he was about to discover something that would change everything. The answers were a step away from me, but the weight of truth was still a burden I didn't know if I was ready to carry. His hands trembled as he held the key he had found in Ethan's house. I couldn't believe I was about to discover a truth that could change everything. I walked to the safe and, with a mixture of fear and hope, unlocked it. Inside, I found a worn leather diary, clearly used and reread countless times. My heart was pounding as I opened the first page and recognized Ethan's handwriting. "Dear Megan," the first entry began. Those words transported me back to the moments we shared, the laughter and tears we shared. I kept reading, absorbing each word with an intensity I didn't know was possible. Ethan, or rather Nathan, explained his troubled past. He had become involved with dangerous people who threatened not only his life, but also Luke's. He decided to change his identity to protect his brother and escape those threats. "I knew I could never tell you, Megan. The risk was too great. But I loved you with everything I had, and every moment by your side was real." Tears streamed down my face. The pain of loss mixed with the realization of the sacrifice Ethan had made. He abandoned everything to ensure Luke's safety, and in doing so, he also turned away from me. My heart ached, but now I understood the depth of his love. I closed the diary carefully and decided that it was time to talk to Lucas. We needed to have a candid conversation, no more secrets or lies. I picked up the phone and dialed his number, feeling a lump in my throat as I waited for him to answer. "Hello?" Lucas' voice sounded on the other end of the line, heavy with concern. "Lucas, it's Megan. We need to talk. Can you come here?" "Of course, I'll be there in half an hour," he replied without hesitation. Time seemed to drag on while waiting for his arrival. Finally, I heard the doorbell ring and opened the door to find Lucas with an apprehensive but determined look. I led him into the room and we sat down, the silence between us heavy and laden with expectations. "Lucas," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found Ethan's diary, or rather, Nathan. I read about what happened, about why he changed his identity." Lucas sighed, relieved and sad at the same time. "I knew one day you would find out. I hope you now understand why he did what he did." I nodded, feeling tears welling up again. "I understand, Lucas. Ethan, Nathan, he loved you so much, and he loved me too. He sacrificed everything to protect us." Lucas held my hand, his touch warm and comforting. "He was a great man, Megan, and I'm sorry for everything you've been through. I never wanted you to get hurt." "I know," I replied, shaking his hand back, "but I think we need to move forward, together. He wanted us to be happy. He wanted us to find peace and love again." Lucas smiled, that familiar smile that reminded me so much of Ethan. "Megan, I love you, and I promise I will always be honest with you. Can we start over? Heal those wounds and find the happiness we deserve?" I took a deep breath, feeling a huge weight being lifted from my chest. "Yes, Lucas, we can start again. Let's honor Ethan's memory, but also create new memories and a new love." We hugged, and in that moment, I felt like a cycle had closed. The past had been painful, but now I was ready to move on, with Lucas by my side. Life offered us a new chance, and I was willing to grab it with all my might. Love, after all, had the power to heal even the deepest wounds, and I was ready to love again. Months have passed since our sincere conversation. Lucas and I decided that the best way to honor Ethan was to live fully and without regrets. We visited places Ethan and I loved, but now with new eyes and new memories. One day, while we were walking through the park where we met, Lucas suddenly stopped and took something out of his pocket. It was a simple but elegant ring. "Megan, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you accept to marry me?" Tears of joy flowed down my face as I nodded, unable to speak. The love I thought I had lost forever was there, in front of me, offering a future full of promise and hope. The past will always be part of us, but we have learned that it is possible to move on without forgetting it. Together, Lucas and I began to build our life, honoring Ethan and the sacrifice he made, but also celebrating the love we found in each other. And so, we begin our new chapter with gratitude, love, and the certainty that no matter what happens, we will always be together. Thank you for following this exciting story. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a like and share with your friends and family. Subscribe to our channel and activate the Tinkerbell so as not to miss any of our incredible stories of love, hope, and overcoming. We want to know your opinion. Leave a comment below telling us what you thought of this story or share a personal experience that inspired you. Remember, every story has the power to transform lives. Stay tuned for our next video.